The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Thousands of alien representatives sat in floating platforms, their forms ranging from insectoid to crystalline, to things that had no name in any human language. Light filtered through the transparent ceiling, revealing the swirling purple nebula that surrounded the station. This place had witnessed 10,000 years of galactic politics. Today, it would witness the beginning of its own end. Commander Hyan Wu Park stood alone on the petitioner's platform. He was a small figure in this vast space, dressed in the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. His black hair was streaked with gray at the temples, and his face carried the calm expression of a man who had seen too much to be surprised by anything. Behind him, a holographic display showed Earth, a tiny blue marble that the Council considered barely worth noticing. "The human petition for membership is denied," announced Councillor Vextar, his insectoid form clicking and buzzing as translation devices converted his speech to human language. He was the leader of the Thalrion Empire, the Council's military arm, for over 3,000 years. His species had conquered hundreds of worlds. To him, humanity was just another primitive race that needed to learn its place. Furthermore, the Council has decided that Earth's resources are required for the greater galactic good. You will accept vassal status and provide tribute, or you will face correction. Hyan Wu did not react. He simply stood there, hands clasped behind his back, watching the thousands of alien faces staring down at him with contempt, pity, or indifference. "May I speak?" he asked quietly. Vextar made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. "You may beg if you wish. It will not change the outcome." Hyan Wu nodded slowly. "I am not here to beg. I am here to warn you." He paused, letting his words settle over the chamber. 5 years ago, when we first made contact with the Council, you dismissed us. You called us primitive. You said our technology was centuries behind yours. You were right about that last part. We were behind. We are not anymore. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "For 5 years," Hyan Wu continued, "while you debated our petition, while you planned your ultimatum, we were learning. We accessed your networks. We studied your weapons. We analyzed your tactics. We know things about your species that you have forgotten about yourselves." He looked directly at Vextar. "We know, for example, that the Thalrion cannot survive in atmospheres with more than 30% oxygen. We know that your exoskeletons become brittle at temperatures below -20 degrees. We know the exact frequency of sound that causes your nervous system to shut down." The chamber had gone completely silent. "This is not a threat," Hyan Wu said. "This is information. I am telling you what we know because I want you to understand something important. When humans fight, we do not fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemy can never fight again. Ever. We have done this to ourselves many times throughout our history. We are very, very good at it." Vextar rose from his seat, his wings buzzing with anger. "You dare threaten the Council? Your species has existed for a mere heartbeat. We have crushed thousands of civilizations." "Yes," Hyan Wu agreed. "You have. And every single one of them fought the same way, fleet against fleet, army against army, honor and glory, and noble defeat. That is not how humans fight. We poison wells. We burn crops. We salt the earth so nothing can grow for generations. We target civilians and infrastructure. We do not stop when the enemy surrenders. We stop when the enemy no longer exists." He paused. "This is your final warning. Withdraw the ultimatum. Leave Earth alone. Or discover why every intelligent species in our history that threatened human survival is now extinct." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Vextar began to laugh, and soon the entire chamber joined him. Thousands of aliens laughing at the small human standing alone on his platform. 3 cycles, Vextar said when the laughter died down. You have 3 cycles to accept vassal status. After that, the correction fleet will arrive at your world, and you will learn the price of arrogance. Hien Wu bowed slightly. As you wish, he said. Then he turned and walked out of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet, 8,000 light-years away. Captain Ji-1 Lee stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable, watching the message from Earth arrive. She was a tall woman, with sharp features and eyes that had seen combat on 3 different worlds. She had joined the military at 18, fought in the resource wars, and risen through the ranks through a combination of tactical genius and absolute ruthlessness. Orders confirmed, she said to her crew. Protocol Omega is active. Her first officer, a young man named Dong Hyan, looked up from his station. Captain, Protocol Omega requires authorization from the Admiral. Already received? G1 pulled up a holographic display showing the Thalrion Armada beginning to move toward Earth. 200 warships, each one capable of devastating a continent. The largest military force the Council had deployed in 500 years. Admiral Kim's message was simple. No prisoners. No mercy. No survivors. Dong Hyan swallowed hard. Captain, there are going to be a lot of them. G1 smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Yes, she said. There are. She turned to face her crew, 50 men and women who had trained for this moment for years. You all knew this day would come. The Council thinks we're primitives. They think we'll fight fair. They think we'll surrender when we're outnumbered. She gestured at the approaching armada on the display. We're going to teach them what happens when you threaten Earth. We're going to teach them so thoroughly that 1,000 years from now, species that haven't even evolved yet will know the lesson. You don't threaten humanity. You don't threaten our home. Because we don't fight wars. She sat down in her command chair, her fingers moving across the controls. We end them. On Earth, Ambassador Su-Min Choi watched the news feeds with growing horror. She had spent her entire career working toward peace, toward integration with galactic society. Now she stood in the command center beneath the Himalayas, surrounded by generals and admirals and weapons scientists, watching her life's work collapse. There has to be another way, she said. Negotiation, compromise. Admiral Taeyang Kim shook his head. He was an old man with a face like weathered stone and eyes that held no illusion about what was coming. They gave us 3 days to become slaves. There is no negotiation with people who see you as property. He turned to face the massive display showing Earth's defensive preparations. For 5 years, we've been preparing for this. Every resource, every scientist, every factory, all of it working toward one goal. Making sure that if they came for us, they would regret it. And if we lose? Su-Min asked. Admiral Kim looked at her with something that might have been pity. We won't lose, he said. That's not the question you should be asking. The question is, when we win, will we still be human? He turned back to the display. I honestly don't know the answer. But I know this, we will survive. Whatever it costs us, whatever we have to become, humanity will survive. And the galaxy will learn to fear us. The Thalrion Armada continued its journey toward Earth, carrying 200 ships and 1 million soldiers, confident in their victory. They had no idea what was waiting for them. They had no idea that in 3 days, their empire would begin to die. They had no idea that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They would learn. They would all learn. The Thalrion Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Near the frozen rocks of the Kuiper Belt, War Master Krelther stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching his sensors fill with data about the primitive human system. 200 warships spread out behind him in perfect formation, each one crewed by veterans of 100 campaigns. This would be easy. This would be quick. These humans would learn their place. "War Master," his sensor officer called out, "we are detecting a single vessel ahead. Human design." Krelther's mandibles clicked with amusement. "One ship? They send one ship to face us?" He turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel. Let us hear their surrender." The view screen flickered, and a human female appeared. She sat in a command chair, her face calm and her eyes cold. Behind her, Krelther could see a small bridge crew working at their stations. "I am Captain G1 Lee of the Earth Defense Vessel Indomitable," she said. "You are entering human space. Turn around now, and you will be allowed to leave." Laughter erupted across the bridge. Krelther let it continue for a moment before raising one of his 4 arms for silence. "One ship," he said. "You bring one ship against 200, and you demand that we leave? Human, do you understand what we are going to do to your world? We will burn your cities. We will enslave your people. We will." "I understand completely," G1 interrupted. "That is why I'm giving you this chance. Leave now. This is your final warning." Krelther's amusement faded. There was something in the human's voice, something in her eyes, that made him uncomfortable. Not fear, not desperation. Something else entirely. It looked almost like pity. "Destroy that ship," he ordered. "Show these primitives what happens to those who waste our time." 50 Thalrion warships opened fire simultaneously. Plasma beams, kinetic rounds, and guided missiles streaked toward the Indomitable. The combined firepower was enough to crack a moon. Krelther waited for the human ship to become dust. The Indomitable did not become dust. The ship sat there, taking hit after hit, its hull glowing with absorbed energy. Some kind of shielding technology that Krelther had never seen before wrapped the vessel in a shimmer of blue light. After 30 seconds of continuous bombardment, the Indomitable had not moved. It had not been damaged. It sat there, waiting. "Impossible," Krelther whispered Dot. Then the Indomitable fired back. The first shot was a solid metal rod, fired at nearly the speed of light. It passed through the Thalrion destroyer Righteous Fury without slowing down, punching a hole through the entire length of the ship. The Righteous Fury exploded from the inside out, its reactor containment failing in a cascade of light and fire. More shots followed. Not plasma or energy weapons, just metal, moving faster than anything Krelther had ever seen. Each shot hit a different ship. Each shot killed a different ship. The Thalrion vessels tried to evade, but the human weapons were too fast, too accurate. "Return fire," Krelther screamed. "All ships, concentrate fire on that vessel." 200 ships unleashed everything they had. The space around the Indomitable became a storm of energy and metal. And still the human ship sat there, absorbing it all, firing back with methodical precision. Then the Indomitable launched something new. Torpedoes, but not like any torpedo Krelther had seen before. They moved slowly, almost lazily, drifting toward the Thalrion fleet. His point defense systems tracked them, shot them down easily. The torpedoes exploded, and reality itself seemed to tear apart. Krelther watched in horror as 3 of the ships simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where warships had been. The torpedoes created zones of absolute destruction, areas where matter could not exist, where the laws of physics temporarily stopped working. "What are these weapons?" His science officer screamed. "We have no record of technology like this." "Retreat," Krelther ordered. "All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. Get us out of here." The navigation officer's response crushed what remained of Krelther's hope. War Master, we cannot jump. There is some kind of field surrounding the fleet. Our drives will not engage. On the view screen, Captain G1 appeared again. Her expression had not changed. She still looked calm, almost bored. I told you to leave, she said. You did not listen. Now you will serve a different purpose. You will be a message. Lieutenant H. Ahan worked her console with swift precision, coordinating the Indomitable's weapon systems. She had trained for this for 4 years, running simulation after simulation, preparing for the day when humanity would face the Council's military might. In the simulations, she had killed millions. Today, she was killing thousands, and it felt exactly the same. Clean, efficient, necessary. 47 ships destroyed, she reported. Enemy fleet is attempting to scatter. Captain G1 nodded. Activate the secondary interdiction fields. Box them in. More blue shimmer appeared in space, forming walls of energy that the Thalrion ships could not pass. They were trapped, fish in a barrel, and the Indomitable was the fisherman. Captain, H.A. said quietly, they are signaling surrender. G1 was silent for a moment. She looked at the tactical display, showing the remaining 150 ships, most of them damaged, all of them terrified. 1 million Thalrian soldiers and crew, begging for their lives. Continue firing, she said. Isha hesitated for just a moment. She had known this order was coming. She had prepared herself for it. But knowing and doing were different things. She looked at her captain, saw the steel in her eyes, and understood. This was not cruelty. This was calculation. The Council needed to understand that surrender was not an option, that mercy was not guaranteed, that threatening humanity meant total annihilation. Yes, Captain, she said, and continued firing. The destruction took another hour. One by one, the Thalrian ships died. Some tried to fight. Some tried to flee. Some simply sat there, paralyzed with fear, waiting for death. The Indomitable gave them all the same treatment, precise, efficient, absolute. When it was over, only one ship remained. A small transport, barely armed, carrying 300 survivors who had managed to escape their dying vessels. G1 had ordered that ship spared. She opened a channel to it. You will return to Council space, she said. You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them that this was one ship. One ship destroyed your entire armada. Tell them we have hundreds more. Tell them that if they send another fleet, we will come for their homeworlds. Tell them that humanity does not fight wars. We end species. The transport fled, its engines screaming as it pushed toward the jump point. Behind it, the debris field of the Thalrion armada spread across thousands of kilometers twisted metal, frozen bodies, and the shattered pride of an empire. On Earth, Admiral Taeyong Kim received the battle report. He read it twice, then a third time, making sure he understood the numbers. 1 human ship, 200 enemy ships. Total human casualties, 0. Total enemy casualties, approximately 1 million. It worked, he said quietly to Ambassador Su Min, who stood beside him. Our weapons, our shields, our tactics, everything worked. Su Min looked at the casualty figures. 1 million dead, she said. In 1 hour? From one ship. The Admiral nodded slowly. Yes, and when the Council learns what we did, they will send more. They will send everything they have. And we will destroy that too. He turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw something like doubt in his eyes. The question is, how many do we have to kill before they stop? And what does it cost us? Su Min asked. Every time we kill? Admiral Kim had no answer for that. None of them did. They only knew that the war had begun, and that humanity would win it. Whatever the cost. Whatever they had to become dot in the cold silence of the Kuiper Belt, the Indomitable turned toward home, leaving behind a graveyard of ships and the death of an empire's confidence. The message had been sent. Now they waited for the reply. The council refused to believe the reports. When the lone transport arrived at the council station, carrying 300 traumatized survivors and records of the battle, the representatives dismissed it as Thalrian incompetence, equipment failure, or human trickery. 200 ships could not be destroyed by one vessel. It was impossible. The humans must have had hidden allies' secret weapons, something that could be explained and countered. That Counselor Vextar stood before the assembly, his wings rigid with fury and shame. His species had just suffered the worst military defeat in their 3,000-year history, and the other council members were looking at him with barely hidden contempt. "We will form a grand alliance," he announced. 12 species, 3,000 warships. We will crush these humans and burn their world to ash. No more underestimating them. No more sending small fleets. We will bring the full might of the council to their doorstep. The representatives agreed. Within days, the largest military force in galactic history began to assemble. Ships from a dozen species gathered in council space, their captains eager to prove themselves against the mysterious humans who had humiliated the mighty. Thal single quotes Rio NS Doc. They had no idea that humanity was already inside their borders. Captain Min Co. Kong moved through the corridors of the Thalrayon Orbital Defense Station like a ghost. Her stealth suit bent light around her body, making her effectively invisible. Her team of 12 had infiltrated the station 3 days ago, using technology reverse engineered from Council, databases that human hackers had been stealing for years. The Council thought their networks were secure. They were wrong. Humanity had been reading their communications, studying their defenses, and mapping their weaknesses since first contact. Every military code, every patrol route, every shield frequency, all of it was known. Min-Co reached her target, the main environmental control hub for the Thalrion homeworld. From here, atmospheric processors maintained the precise balance of gases that the insectoid species needed to survive. A slight change in oxygen levels, a small adjustment in nitrogen content, and the entire planet would become uninhabitable for Thalrions within months. She placed the device carefully, a small box no larger than her fist. It contained nanomachines programmed to infiltrate the processors and begin making those adjustments. Slowly at first, so slowly that the Thalrians would not notice until it was too late. By the time they realized what was happening, their atmosphere would be transformed into something breathable for humans, but poisonous for them. "Package delivered," she whispered into her communicator. Moving to extraction point. Across council space, similar teams were completing similar missions. Human stealth ships had slipped past every defense, reaching the heart of 6 different homeworlds. They were not there to fight. They were there to prepare. Commander Hyan Wu Park had returned to military service after his diplomatic failure at the council. Now he stood in the war room beneath Earth's surface, watching holographic displays that showed the scope of humanity's response. Phase 2 is complete, Admiral Tae-Yang reported. Atmospheric processors on the Thalrian homeworld will begin conversion in 6 hours. Similar devices are active on 5 other council worlds. Nanite swarms are ready for deployment. Hyan Wu studied the displays. He had spent years trying to prevent this war through diplomacy. He had failed. Now he was part of the machine that would end it through methods that made him sick to contemplate. "The nanites," he said. "Explain again what they do." Admiral Kim pulled up a simulation. It showed Thalrion city towers of crystalline structure, busy streets filled with the insectoid aliens going about their lives. Then the nanites arrived, a cloud of microscopic machines that settled over the city like invisible snow. the simulation accelerated. The nanits began their work, disassembling buildings molecule by molecule, breaking down the alien architecture, and reassembling the raw materials into something new. Within weeks, the Thalrion city was gone. In its place stood human structures, buildings designed for human bodies, streets sized for human vehicles, air processors pumping out a human-compatible atmosphere. They rebuild everything, Admiral Kim explained. Every city, every structure, every piece of infrastructure. The planet remains intact, but everything on it is transformed. The Thalrians will have nowhere to live. Their civilization will be erased and replaced with ours. Hyan Wu felt his stomach turn. And the people? The civilians? They will have time to evacuate. We are not monsters, Commander. We give them the choice to leave before the nanits reach critical density. Those who leave survive. Those who stay... The Admiral shrugged. That is their choice. Their choice is to abandon everything they have ever known or die. Yes, that is what happens when you threaten. Humanity, the Council's Grand Fleet, jumped into human space expecting a desperate defense. Instead, they found the space around Earth quiet and empty. No human ships visible. No defensive platforms. Just a single message beacon broadcasting on all frequencies. Admiral Taeyang's voice filled every bridge in the enemy fleet. Your homeworlds are already compromised. Atmospheric conversion has begun on 6 planets. Nanite swarms are ready to deploy on 4 more. Turn around now and save your people, or stay here and watch your civilizations die from a distance. You have 1 hour to decide. Chaos erupted in the Council fleet. Captains from different species began screaming at each other, demanding confirmation, accusing humans of bluffing. Counselor Vexstar tried to maintain order, but his own people were panicking. Desperate to return home and stop the atmospheric processors, then the human fleet appeared not from Earth, from behind the Council fleet. 400 human warships, each one identical to the Indomitable, dropped out of hyperspace and formed a wall between the Council fleet and their escape route. You came here to conquer us, Admiral Taeyang broadcast. You brought 3,000 ships to enslave a species you considered primitive. Look behind you. We have more. We have always had more. We were just waiting for you to gather in one place. Captain Ji-1 Lee sat on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the Council fleet begin to break apart. Some ships were trying to flee, only to be intercepted by human vessels. Others were sending surrender signals. A few, mostly Thalrian, were turning to fight. Weapons free on hostile targets, G1 ordered. Disable any ship attempting to escape. Accept surrenders from those who power down weapons. Lieutenant H.A. hesitated. Captain, there are millions of beings on those ships. If we do not engage, they will regroup. They will find countermeasures for our weapons. They will come back in greater numbers. G1's voice was flat, emotionless. We end this now. We make them understand that resistance is not an option. That is how we save lives in the long run. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 3 hours. Human weapons tore through Council defenses like they were not there. Ships that tried to fight were destroyed. Ships that tried to flee were captured. Ships that surrendered were boarded and their crews taken prisoner. When it was over, the Council fleet no longer existed. Half its ships were debris. The other half were in human hands. On the Thalrian homeworld, Counselor Vexstar watched the sky turn a slightly different shade of blue. The atmospheric processors were working. In 6 months, his people would not be able to breathe the air of their own planet. In a year, the nanits would begin dismantling their cities. He opened a communication channel to Earth. What do you want? He asked, his voice broken. What will make you stop? Commander Hyan Wu appeared on the screen. His face was hard, but his eyes held something that might have been regret. Surrender. Complete and unconditional. Reparations for the costs of this war. Territory cessions to establish human-controlled space. And a guarantee, enforced by permanent human military presence, that no council species will ever threaten humanity again. You are asking us to become your slaves. No, we are asking you to become our neighbors. Neighbors who remember what happens when you try to enslave us. Haiyan Wu leaned forward. This is mercy, Counselor. We could let the nanites continue. We could let your atmosphere finish converting. We could erase your species from existence and take your world for ourselves. Instead, we are offering you survival. Take it. Before we change our minds. Vextar looked at the changing sky, at the reports of human ships in orbit, at the data showing his military shattered, and his civilization on the edge of annihilation. He had no choice. He had never had a choice. We surrender, he said. The Thalrion Empire surrenders. One by one, the other council species followed. Some fought longer than others. Some lost more than others. But in the end, they all surrendered. They all learned the same lesson. Humanity did not fight wars. Humanity erased their enemies. And the galaxy would never forget it. 5 council species had surrendered within the first month. 3 more were negotiating terms, their governments desperate to stop the atmospheric processors and nanite swarms that were slowly transforming their worlds. But 4 species refused to give up. The Thalrians, despite Vextar's surrender, had a military faction that rejected the agreement. They joined with 3 other stubborn races and retreated to Kelvash, an ancient fortress world built into the heart of a dead planet. Kelvash had been designed to withstand anything. Its surface was covered with weapons platforms and shield generators. Its interior housed millions of soldiers and civilians who had chosen to fight rather than submit to human domination. The fortress had never been conquered in its 8,000-year history. Admiral Tae-Young Kim stood in the command center of the human flagship Retribution, studying the tactical display of the fortress world. His fleet surrounded Kelvash, 500 ships bristling with weapons that could crack the planet open. But he had not given the order to attack. "Admiral," Captain G1 said, standing beside him, "we have been here for 3 days. The fleet is ready. Why do we wait?" The admiral did not answer immediately. He continued staring at the display, at the fortress world and its millions of inhabitants. Finally, he spoke. "Intelligence reports indicate significant civilian population, families, children, non-combatants, who fled here seeking protection. They are protected by the military that refuses to. Surrender. Yes, and if we attack, we will kill them all. The fortress is too strong for surgical strikes. We would need to use everything we have." He turned to face her. "Are you prepared to kill millions of civilians to end this war, Captain?" G1 met his gaze without flinching. "I have already killed millions, Admiral. What is a few more? That is exactly what concerns me." Dr. Youngjae Shin entered the command center, his face pale and his hands trembling slightly. He was the fleet's chief xenobiologist, responsible for developing the biological weapons that humanity had prepared as a last resort. He had hoped he would never have to present this option. "Admiral," he said, "I need to speak with you privately." They moved to a side room, away from the bridge crew. Young Jae placed a data tablet on the table, its screen showing complex biological diagrams. "We have finished development on the species-specific pathogens," he said. "Tailored viruses designed to target the DNA of each council species. They are 100% lethal to the intended target and completely harmless to humans and all other species." He swallowed hard. "We could deploy them on Kelvash. The military, the civilians, Everyone dead within 72 hours. No human casualties. No prolonged siege. Just ... extinction. Admiral Kim stared at the diagrams. How long have we had this capability? 3 years. We developed them as a deterrent. We never intended to actually use them. And yet here we are, discussing their use. Young Jay nodded miserably. I am a scientist, Admiral. I create tools. I do not decide when they should be used. But I felt you needed to know this option exists. He paused. I also need you to know that if we use these weapons, we will have crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. We will have committed genocide. Deliberate, calculated, complete genocide. The Admiral was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy. Thank you, Doctor. I will consider all options. Lieutenant H. Han found Captain G1 in the observation deck, staring out at the fortress world. The younger officer had been struggling with doubts since the first battle, and they had only grown stronger with each victory, each death toll, each report of civilian casualties. Captain, she said, may I speak freely? G1 did not turn around. You may. We have won this war. The Council is broken. Most of them have surrendered. Why are we still here? Why are we considering weapons that would kill millions of innocent people? She moved to stand beside her captain. What happened to us? When did we become the monsters? G1 finally turned to face her. Her eyes were tired, and for the first time, Aisha saw something other than cold determination in them. She saw exhaustion. She saw doubt. We became this when they threatened our home, G1 said quietly. We became this when we realized that mercy would be seen as weakness, and weakness would mean extinction. We became this because we had no choice. There is always a choice. Is there? G1 gestured at the fortress world. If we show mercy now, if we let them keep their fortress, what message does that send? That humanity can be defied? That we will stop if you resist long enough? In 10 years, 20 years, they will rebuild. They will develop countermeasures for our weapons. They will come for us again. And next time, we might not win. H. shook her head. So we kill them all? We murder millions of civilians because they might be a threat someday? That is the question, isn't it? G1 turned back to the window. That is the question I have been asking myself since this war began. And I do not have a good answer. On Earth, the news of the siege had sparked massive protests. Millions of people filled the streets of every major city, demanding an end to the war. They carried signs reading, "Not in our name," and "Peace now," and "We are not monsters." The civilian government was under enormous pressure to negotiate, to show mercy, to prove that humanity was better than this. Commander Hyan-Woo Park addressed the emergency session of the world government. His uniform worn and his face haggard from weeks of sleepless nights. I have seen what our military can do, he said. I have watched cities dissolve into nanite swarms. I have read reports of atmospheric conversion that will make entire planets uninhabitable for their native species. I have reviewed the bioweapon proposals that could end this war in 3 days. He paused, looking at the representatives from every nation on Earth. We started this war defending ourselves. We were right to do so. But somewhere along the way, we crossed a line. We went from defending humanity to threatening the existence of other species. We went from survival to conquest. What would you have us do? Demanded the representative from Europe. Let them keep their fortress? Let them plot revenge? I do not know, Hyan-Woo admitted. I know what we can do. I am no longer certain what we should do. The debate raged for hours. Some demanded total victory at any cost. Others called for immediate withdrawal. Most fell somewhere in the middle, uncertain and afraid. While Earth argued, Counselor Vextar made his decision. He had been a prisoner of the human fleet, technically a surrendered leader awaiting formal peace negotiations. But he still had access to communications, and he used them. His message reached Admiral Tae-Yang directly, bypassing the command structure. "I know you are considering the bioweapons," Vextar said. "I know your scientists have created viruses that could kill every Thalrion in existence. I am asking you not to use them. Not for my sake. Not for my people's sake. For yours." The Admiral received the message in his quarters, alone. He opened the channel. "Explain. If you use those weapons, you will win this war. Completely. Totally. But you will also lose something that you can never get back. Your species will be known forever as the ones who committed genocide. Every other species in the galaxy will look at humanity and see exterminators. You will never have allies. You will never have peace. You will spend eternity waiting for the next threat, the next species that decides the only way to survive is to destroy you first. And the alternative? Accept our surrender. The real surrender, not just words. Let my people evacuate Kelvash. Give us a world, a small one, far from human space where we can rebuild. Monitor us, restrict us, keep us weak if you must. But let us live." Vextar's voice cracked. "I am begging you, Admiral, not for mercy for us, for mercy for yourselves. Do not become what we tried to make you." Admiral Kim sat in silence for a long time after the message ended. He thought about the bioweapons waiting in storage. He thought about the millions of civilians on Kelvash. He thought about his granddaughter on Earth, who had asked him once what he did for work, and how he had not known how to answer. He thought about what kind of galaxy he wanted to leave behind. Then he made his decision. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, stand down from attack positions. We are opening negotiations with the fortress. There will be no assault. There will be no bioweapons. There will be a different way to end this." In the command center, Captain G1 heard the order and felt something she had not felt in months. Relief, doubt, hope. Lieutenant Etcha stood beside her, tears running down her face. "We made the right choice." Etcha whispered. G-1 was not sure if that was true. But for the first time since the war began, she wanted to believe it. The negotiations took 3 weeks. In the end, the remaining resistance surrendered. The civilians were evacuated. The bioweapons remained unused, locked away in storage that only a handful of people knew existed. Humanity had won the war. But the cost to their enemies, to their souls, to their future was still being calculated. 10 years had passed since the war ended. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The old council was gone, replaced by the reformed Galactic Assembly with humanity at its center. Not as conquerors, though many species saw them that way. As guardians, protectors, the ones who had the power to destroy everything and had chosen. In the end, not to. Ambassador Su-Min Choi stood at the podium of the Assembly Hall, looking out at representatives from 30 different species. Some of them had fought against humanity. Some had surrendered without fighting. All of them now lived under human protection, whether they wanted it or not. 10 years ago, she said, we faced extinction. We responded with overwhelming force. We did things that still haunt us, things that we can never undo. She paused, gathering herself. 4 worlds were partially terraformed before we stopped the nanits. Billions of beings were displaced from their homes. 3 species were reduced to refugee populations, scattered across distant systems. The scars of this war will take generations to heal. She looked at the Thalrion representative, a young female named Velmer, who had been a child during the war. Velmer's eyes held no hatred, only a wary watchfulness that never quite faded. But we are here today to move forward. The Never Again Accord I am proposing would create a mutual defense pact, ensuring that no species ever faces extinction-level conflict. We will protect each other. We will resolve disputes through negotiation. We will remember what war truly costs. She straightened her shoulders. Humanity learned a terrible lesson during this war. We learned that we are capable of things we never imagined. We learned that survival can come at too high a price. We are asking you to help us make sure we never have to pay that price again. The vote would take place in 3 days. Su Min already knew it would pass. Not because the other species agreed with humanity's vision, because they were afraid to disagree. On Earth, in a small house overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Captain Ji-Won Lee sat alone in her garden. She was 53 years old now, retired from the military, decorated with medals she kept locked in a drawer and never looked at. Her hair had gone completely gray, and her eyes carried a weight that never lifted. She spent most of her days here, tending flowers, watching the ocean, trying not to remember. But memory was a stubborn enemy, harder to defeat than any fleet. A young journalist had contacted her last week, wanting an interview for the 10th anniversary of the war. Ji-Won had refused, as she always did. What could she say? That she had killed more beings than she could count? That she had followed orders that turned her into a weapon? That some nights she still saw the debris fields in her dreams, still heard the screaming on the communication channels as ships died? She had done what was necessary. She still believed that. But believing something was necessary and living with it were two very different things. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Lieutenant Echa Han, now Captain Han, still serving in the fleet. Echa checked on her every few weeks, the only one from the old crew who still bothered. Thinking about you today, Captain. Hope you're finding some peace. Ji-Won smiled slightly, the first smile in days. Peace. That was a word she had given up on long ago. But she appreciated the thought Dr. Young Jae-shin had dedicated his post-war years to reconciliation. His Institute for Species Understanding brought together young people from human and alien species, teaching them to see each other as neighbors rather than enemies. The program had started small, but now it operated on 12 worlds, with thousands of students each year. Today, he was hosting a special class at the main campus on Earth. Human students sat next to Thalrion students, learning about each other's histories, cultures, and hopes for the future. It was awkward, tense, and full of moments that made young Joy want to cringe. But it was also necessary. A young human woman named Hai-Jin raised her hand. She was 18, born 2 years after the war ended, part of the first generation that had no direct memory of the conflict. Dr. Shin, she said, I have a question. In my history classes, they teach us that humanity won the war because our technology was superior. But I have been reading other accounts, and they say we won because we were willing to do things the other species were not. Things like, she hesitated, like targeting civilians, like changing atmospheres, like creating weapons that could kill entire species. Young Jay felt the tension in the room spike. The Thalrion students shifted uncomfortably. One of them, Velmer, the same young female who served in the assembly, watched Hai-Jin with careful attention. That is a fair question, young Jay said. The truth is, both answers are correct. We had superior technology. We also had fewer limits on how we were willing to use it. He took a deep breath. The war was a dark time. Humanity did things that many of us are not proud of. We have spent the last 10 years trying to make amends for those choices. That is why programs like this one exist, so that your generation can build something better than what we left you. After class, Hai-Jin found herself walking alongside Velmer. They had been assigned to the same study group but had barely spoken. "I am sorry about my question," Hyjin said. "I did not mean to make you uncomfortable." Velmer S. antennae twitched, a gesture Hyjin had learned meant thoughtfulness. "You asked what everyone thinks, but no one says. That takes courage." She paused, looking at the campus grounds, at the human buildings and human sky. "My mother died when our city was being evacuated. She was too old to travel quickly, and the Nanits—" She stopped, then continued. "I do not blame you personally. You were not even born. But I remember. My people remember. I do not know what to say to that. There is nothing to say. It happened. It cannot be changed." Velmer turned to face her. "The question is what happens now. Do we spend the next 1,000 years hating each other? Or do we find a way to move forward?" Hyjin thought about it. "I would like to move forward. I would like to be your friend, if you will let me." Velmer was silent for a long moment. Then her mandibles clicked in what Hyjin recognized as a Thalryan smile. "I will let you try. That is the most I can promise." Commander Hyen-Woo Park, now 91 years old, lived in a care facility in Seoul. His mind was still sharp, though his body had failed him years ago. Hyjin was his granddaughter, and she visited him every week. Today, she had questions. "Grandfather," she said, sitting beside his bed, "I need to know something. If it happened again, if another species threatened humanity, would we do the same things?" Hyen-Woo looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. He had spent years as a diplomat, then years as a soldier, then decades as a teacher trying to explain to younger generations what the war had meant. He was tired. But this question deserved an honest answer. "Yes," he said, in a heartbeat. Hyjin felt cold. Even knowing what it cost? Even knowing what we did to those worlds, those people? Especially knowing that. Hyen-Woo reached out and took her hand, his grip weak but warm. "You are young. You grew up in peace. You cannot imagine what it felt like when the Council declared that Earth would be conquered, our people enslaved. You cannot imagine the fear." He paused. "When survival is at stake, people do terrible things. We did terrible things. And if we had to do them again to protect humanity, we would not hesitate. That frightens me. It should. It frightens me too. That is why we build institutions like the Assembly, programs like Dr. Shin's Institute, laws and treaties and alliances. We build them to make sure we never have to make that choice again. Because we know what we are capable of when we are pushed." His eyes closed. "The galaxy learned to fear us. Good. Fear keeps them honest. But fear is not enough. That is your generation's job, to turn fear into respect, and respect into trust. To make sure the next 1,000 years are better than the last." The assembly hall on the council station was busy with the final preparations for the vote on the Never Again Accord. Ambassador Su Min reviewed her notes, knowing that this moment would define humanity's legacy for centuries to come. Through the transparent walls, she could see the human shipyards in the distance. Even now, 10 years after the war, they were building. New vessels, more powerful than anything the old council had faced, took shape in the orbital docks. The fleet that had ended the war was nothing compared to what humanity had now. A message appeared on her tablet. It was from Admiral Tae Yang Kim, who had retired 5 years ago and now spent his days teaching at the military academy. "They will pass your accord," the message read. "They will agree to everything you propose. Not because they believe in it, because they are still afraid. Make sure they have reason to believe in it eventually. That is the only way this peace will last." Su Min looked out at the shipyards, at the ships being built, at the power that humanity had accumulated. She thought about the war, about the billions who had died, about the worlds that had been transformed, about the bioweapons that still sat in storage somewhere, waiting. The vote began. One by one, species declared their support. The accord passed unanimously. Outside, a new human warship launched from the shipyards. It was named Mercy, and it carried enough firepower to sterilize a planet. As it moved into formation with the rest of the human fleet, its running lights blinked in the darkness of space. A reminder, a promise, a warning. The Council had learned its lesson. They had learned it too late to save themselves from humiliation and near extinction. But they had learned it. Humanity did not fight wars. Humanity erased their foes, and the galaxy would never, ever forget it. The end.